Self-directed learning as an adult. Let's move on from my youth and look at the value of self-directed learning in my adult life. There's lots of examples I could explore in detail, like learning to play drums, learning about yoga and spirituality, learning about social activism, exploring mental health, learning to skateboard and surf, and learning about new cultures through international travel. Even writing this audiobook, designing the app, finding the right person to build it, and experimenting with marketing strategies was a self-directed learning experience. Instead of briefly talking about each of these different subjects I've learned about, I'd like to dive deeply into a single subject I studied so you can see the gritty, day-to-day details of what self-directed learning can look like. Keep in mind that self-directed learning looks different for everybody. It's very personalized to the individual. But seeing my approach will give you one detailed perspective to help expand your perception of what is possible. I'm going to focus here on the journey I went through after I left teaching in 2014 and made my first efforts to empower young people to learn without school through a project called Open Source High, reference 45. There are two things I want you to pay attention to as I share this story. One, take notice of the large variety of resources I tapped into as learning tools. And two, take notice of all the accidental byproducts that came out of my learning. When I say accidental byproduct, I mean things which I learned along the way which weren't directly related to my goal, but were necessary for me to pick up to proceed on my path. It is many of these accidental byproducts that proved to be the most valuable things I learned. As evidence of that, the mere fact that I am able to sit here and devote the many hours it's taking to write and edit this book is a direct result of a business I started which was an accidental byproduct of launching Open Source High. When I first quit teaching, I really had no clue how I was going to change the school system to allow young people to pursue self-directed learning. I never expected self-directed learning would be allowed within a school, so I felt it was necessary for youth to have the option of leaving school and learning independently. I never thought that school would disappear or go out of business, but I imagined if enough young people left to pursue independent learning and were successful, this would force the school system to change. I needed to examine exactly what opportunities I wanted to create for young people, so I reflected on my own experiences and what worked best for me. I thought of my senior year of college, when I was beginning my first startup company. I remembered the passion and excitement that I pursued learning with. I thought of what exactly was the mechanism I used to learn from. There were many. I attended seminars and workshops, I read online forums and blogs, I read books, I read peer-reviewed journal articles, I emailed with professors and business people and lawyers, I reached out to friends and family. I did all of this without being forced or coerced. I stepped back further from the problem and asked more questions. Where did I find out about the seminars and workshops? Where did I find the forums and blogs? How did I decide what books to read? Where did I find journal articles? How did I find out about these professionals? How did I get in touch with them? There was no single answer. Sometimes I'd use Google. Sometimes I'd find links on blogs pointing to other resources. Sometimes I'd get recommendations for books to read from people or websites. Sometimes I'd hear a website mentioned in a seminar and subsequently visit the website. Sometimes a professor would introduce me to another professor within their network via email. Sometimes I'd see a flyer for an entrepreneurship or technology-related event and attend it. I also recalled reaching out to my friends who studied a wide range of subjects. From my mechanical engineering friends, I would receive technological aid. From my marketing major friends, I would grasp the understanding of how to promote a business. Oftentimes, they didn't have the answers, but they could refer me to websites, books, YouTube videos, professors, or other students who could better help me. This learning process felt very natural and felt like there were infinite resources. I learned far more from this self-directed process than any college course. This is not to suggest that taking a class is not part of self-directed learning, but classes were just one of many pieces in a much bigger learning pathway. My goal when I took a class wasn't just to get a good grade, it was to get knowledge I was looking for, build a relationship with the professors, and be able to ask lots of questions that pertain to my own genuine interests. And seeing this natural process by which I was finding resources through other people when launching my startup during college, I noticed a parallel to my current involvement in the psychiatric survivors' mental health movement. Specifically, peer support was found to be much more effective at helping people than traditional models that involved an hierarchical structure of a powerful doctor telling you what to do. By getting rid of the authority figure directing and dictating, you empower people to mutually solve their problems together. According to the helper therapy principle described by social psychologist Frank Reisman, helping others is deemed absolutely essential to helping oneself. Reference 46. I started believing that a model that empowered youth to collaborate with one another could really work. I was also reminded of the students in my freshman physics classes, many of whom did not have parental support to guide them effectively. Many kids have separated parents who work multiple jobs and aren't around for most of the time. Some of my students even had the responsibility of raising their siblings. In the absence of supportive parents, they would need peers to lean onto for support. I thought that creating a structure that empowered peers to support one another's learning goals could be a tool that made youth less reliant on the top-down school system. Even though I had a vague vision of what I wanted to see happen, I wasn't ready to take to the streets trying to liberate the children of the world immediately. I needed to start small with something real and tangible that showed that peer learning was effective at least liberating a few students from school. Around this time, I gained inspiration from 4 existing companies and decided to incorporate elements of their models into a peer learning project of my own. First, Khan Academy. Khan Academy was growing rapidly with their massive database of video lessons covering nearly every subject in a high school curriculum. To some extent, they had proven that video-based learning could work. Although it was incredibly powerful, it appeared terribly boring. Second, was the Comedy Central show Tosh.0, which featured comedian Daniel Tosh making jokes about funny YouTube clips, which was very highly rated. Every episode ended with a feature of a viewer video of the week, in which several viewers would compete to get featured. This showed me that a celebrity could engage with an audience and encourage them to submit user-submitted content. Third was Reddit. Reddit had claimed its position as the so-called front page of the internet. Its strategy of allowing users to upvote and downvote content demonstrated that an engaged community could effectively curate crowdsourced content. Fourth was YouTube. YouTube was becoming an incredibly popular platform for young people to create and post content. There were countless creative youth all competing for attention on the internet through their video content. I saw a vague path that, while incredibly ambitious, seemed feasible enough to pursue. I thought if Tosh decided to use his star power for good purposes, he could tell his teenage viewers to submit educational videos, and they'd bring in entertaining and informative content. A community could upvote and downvote for quality to make sure we filtered out the best videos, and he'd end up creating his own Tosh Academy of content made by teens. If teens then started learning from content made by their peers, then it would prove to motivated teens that peer-to-peer learning was a powerful enough force to inspire them to make the leap away from the school system into a collaborative, self-directed learning path. Naturally, Tosh is busy with his own projects, and I lack his star power, so I needed to start small. To make this happen, I envisioned building a website where kids would post creative, entertaining, yet educational videos teaching one another every subject in a high school curriculum. Not every video needed to be some over-the-top crazy video. That was my own personal preference. But the focus would be on young people speaking to one another through their own creative medium. I wanted to create a structure that allowed them to use their own styles. I didn't want to dictate and hinder their creativity. The overarching goal was for them to engage with one another however they chose, not necessarily the way I envisioned them. There were 2 skills I needed to get this project launched: video production and website development. I felt that I needed a sample set of my own funny educational videos, which would set the tone for what the website would be all about. This would attract the first student-made videos, and then I could remove my own content to focus on the ones made by students. Although I had never made a video before, I had some experience with website development and audio editing software from my childhood. Then I'd need the website, which would display all the content submitted by the teens, sort it by subject, and manage the upvoting and downvoting. At the time, I felt like I was in way over my head with the website. When I first started building websites in the late 90s, it was easy to build a legitimate-looking website, seeing as the majority of websites were very basic. They mainly consisted of a single programming language, HTML, which is easy to learn. Modern websites are different. They are dynamic, have databases storing content, use multiple functional programming languages to drive capabilities, and include more detailed stylings of fonts, graphics, and animations. Plus, today's websites have to adapt to different size screens. I was really intimidated by the idea of making a modern website, and also realized that to get this project started, I didn't really need the advanced stuff. I could get by with most of the basic skills I had from my childhood and just create a simple landing page with a few videos on it. Once I laid out a vision of where this would go, I believed I could attract other people with more advanced web development skills to build a more sophisticated website. Learning modern web development seemed like it may actually be a distraction for moving forward with the project, so I didn't spend time on it.